themselves up, and being available to allow someone to come in and have that sort of building a relationship. But be available, like be available, go out, hang out, but don't look per se. Because once you start looking, then you're putting your own
it's
self. You're putting a lot of things at risk. You're putting your own self at risk. You think you know what you like, but really you don't. Like you're gonna find out that there's things about people that you don't like that you thought you liked, or you're gonna see something. You're gonna see someone that you didn't really think that you'd be attracted to, and you're attracted to them. You don't really know why, but you're just attracted to them. And if you feel that attraction, then follow that attraction. It's okay. Like follow that. If everyone else, I have a friend. We have a friend who no names at all. Just I'm trying to be as open, general as possible here. But we have a friend who knew someone, and from that, everyone around that person thought that other person was like, why are you messing with them? But that person was like, I mean, I'm attracted. So it didn't matter what everybody else thought. It only mattered what that person thought about that person. And so I saw singles have to really just focus and zone in on that attraction. If you feel it, explore it. See what that's about.
Thank you. That's really awesome. Just to kind of piggyback, since you were kind of giving advice for singles about being open, what do you think they should do to prepare for marriage?
How do you prepare for marriage? Wow, that's a good question.
I think you just need to work on yourself, right? Like work on you and your relationship with God. I think that might be the best preparation for marriage, because if that's right, then when you get into the difficult moments of marriage, like when you have to start talking about like money and you arguing about all this other extra stuff that you weren't, you didn't necessarily have to have conversations about before when you were just dating, then you're going to allow like God and the Holy Spirit to lead you and guide your responses and how you listen and things like that, because those are the difficult parts of marriage. Like understanding how, like, I'm like pretty reactionary and is extremely reactionary. And so when it's a matter of like, you're like, if somebody says something, you're like, what? Like, but they may not have even meant it that way, but it's a matter of understanding now, okay, how do I process that? And then be like, okay, well, this is what I got from what you're saying. Is that what you really meant to say? Because this is how I took it. And learning that. We're still learning that, almost 12 years later. Well, more than that, but 12 years later in terms of being married, on how to really like communicate well and effectively. And I think that is what a lot of marriages like tend to break down from, just a lack of effective communication. So I feel like the best preparation for marriage is working on yourself. I think, again, being open to everything, open to criticism, open to change, open to growth, will help you prepare for marriage.
And I would say a practical thing you can do is actually kind of fun. This is what we did. So we did something called couple counseling. And this is just when we were dating. And it wasn't nothing we had to do. We wasn't going through any problems or nothing. It was just like, we just wanted to do it. So basically what we did was we literally just said, you know what, let's just hit up people. And as a couple, let's sit down together with those people on the phone or in person and just talk about relationships and get their feedback on stuff. We literally
what you're doing now.
Yeah, but on a personal level, but also not discriminating anyone, because we talked to, like, we were a couple, but we would talk to people who were single. We talked to married couples. We talked to if someone was divorced. I mean, if they're going through like whatever, man, woman, but whatever. We just talk to people because everyone has a unique perspective. If you've been through a divorce or a hard breakup, you have a good perspective on something that you can share with us. If you have a great relationship, you've been married for 30 years, you have something to add, and everyone in between. So that's a really fun thing that singles can do when they find someone, and just connect and do a couple counseling and just ask friends. We would ask our friends from college, like, hey, we literally just sit down for 30 minutes, an hour, and just talk. And they would just give us, and we were there to listen. We didn't really contribute. We didn't contribute to the conversation. We just listened. And so that was a practical thing, Amber, that really worked for us too, to help prepare us for that next step of being married.
So as far as counseling, at what point in dating did you guys go to counseling?
Like marriage counseling or
just
Like
the
you just
couples
the
counseling?
couples counseling?
oh, that was quick.
That was like
pretty quick
within
in.
the first year, right?
Yeah. I can't tell pinpoint it,
I
but it
don't
was
remember
definitely
the
within
month,
first
but
year.
it was within the first year. We was just like look, because one of the things that we also implemented, I mean, just because we were long distance and stuff, we wanted to ensure that we had like set times to talk to each other and have devotion. You know, that was a really big key. We were always like, God is our foundation. That was like our theme of our relationship.
Still
and
is.
so we ensured that in that time we would be like, okay, let's have devotion at this time. And that was an aspect for a while of our devotion, having these counseling sessions. So I think it was well within our first year. I just don't remember like the exact month that we decided that it would be a good idea.
It was, and I would say this too for any men singles who are watching, any dudes. I would really encourage you, if this is not in your personality, to work on developing this. And that's really to if you are a guy that has a relationship with God, if you have a faith, if you're in your faith, I would really encourage you to take a strong role in leading in your relationship, the God aspect of things. You know, even in a dating situation, this is beyond marriage. If you find someone you're attracted to and you start dating or whatever, take that lead with a prayer. You know, simple stuff. Take that lead and say, hey, you know, let's have devotion. Let's read this book together. You know, let's watch this YouTube video together. Just take a lead and really step up in those things. It's not to say that the woman can't do that either. It's just that I guess maybe I'm a little old school, but I feel like, you know, if you have a relationship with God and you are a man, just to take that step in leadership in that. And if you are a dude and you don't really have a relationship with God, if you're watching, you're working on that thing with God, you know, it's okay to just say, okay, well, I can't maybe not be comfortable doing that yet, but I am going to step up and do something. Like let's work on, let me take the lead in how can we, you know, learn more about relationships, like what you guys are doing, or just learning about yourself or whatever it is. Just lead, just step up and lead, and make sure that, because when you're leading, I think if again, I fall back on God, but as long as you're following God in your life as a guy, then it's easier for a woman of faith to follow you. She can follow a dude who she knows is following God. She can follow that man. But the man who ain't really following God, and you have a woman of faith, she's going to have a hard time following you. And that's going to cause some problems, because we need respect. Dudes need respect. This is one of the things we're learning now.
We're reading a book now about that.
Guys need respect. And it's hard for a woman to respect you if she don't fully trust your leadership. So those are just my thoughts to the dudes. Sorry.
No, that's good. And as you were talking, you mentioned something earlier about being available, making yourself available as a single. And I noticed that a lot of singles, they don't make themselves available to really anybody because their list is so long and unrealistic that, you know, they're only going to make themselves available to this unicorn of a person that doesn't even exist. And, you know, not that lists are bad, but I think that so many people they're so detailed on their list that if they miss one of the 85 points on the list, they're not even going to talk to them. I hear that. I see that a lot of people. And what I'm seeing is these long, unrealistic lists are keeping people single longer than they really should be. So how do you navigate the list? Like what should be on the list and what shouldn't be?
I mean, even we had lists, or we had things that we talked about, but it was a matter of like, what is a deal breaker and what's not, right? Yeah. So like there are certain things, like you can have like all these things that you really want this person to be, but there are like certain things that are deal breakers. And like for me, like look, if you're not a follower of God, like that's a deal breaker. Like because we're not, there's gonna be contention. You know, I'm gonna want to, if I see you as my husband in the future and I want to raise my kids a certain way, like I'm not trying to have this argument with you about are our kids gonna go to church or not. And so there are things that I knew for myself that were deal breakers. And so I feel like just sourcing out like what are these key things that you have to have in a person is what you would hold on to. I don't think like having an ideal person is a bad thing, but understanding what character flaws or traits or things like that are deal breakers that's not going to make the relationship work well is something good to have.
And I would say this: stop holding on. Singles, stop holding on to those deal breakers of a person because they have potential. So like if a deal breaker for you is oh, he can't or she can't she can't cook, right? Well, if that's a deal breaker for you, like if that's a legit deal breaker, but you hold on because there's potential, like they mama can cook, so maybe they've started to,
she willing to learn.
No, not that. But like literally, like if you see potential in, if you're saying there's potential in the deal breaker, it's still a deal breaker. Don't maintain that relationship with deal breakers because of potential. Don't do that. Instead, let them work it out. Let them if they want to cook, fine, cool. If that's a deal breaker, well, cool. You do your thing, you cook, whatever. When they get their self together and they come back and you guys reunite, if that deal breaker is no longer a deal breaker because either that person has worked that out or something changed within your spirit it's no longer a deal breaker, then don't deal with it. Don't deal with it because people will hold on to deal breakers. Like the God thing is big because if someone doesn't have a relationship, if your deal breaker is, oh, they have to have a relationship with God, but the person you like, you really got a connection with, me feeling, but they don't really have that relationship with God, but you think there's potential. Like you think like, hey, maybe, you know, if I take them to church or maybe if I pray with them, they'll change. No, you can't change nobody. So don't do that. Let them work it out. And then if you come back together and they have that, cool. If not, it's still a deal breaker. So let that go.
And I think that goes to the whole like settling and feeling like, oh, okay, like, you know, is this as good as it's going to get type of thing? Because honestly, like when you're sitting up here and it's like, but there's potential, you have to be strong enough in yourself and confident enough with like where you're at and where the Lord is leading you to be able to let some people go, right? You know, like you have to be like, all right, okay, let's separate. We'll work on ourselves together because there are some things that you need to work on. There's some things that I need to work on. And there may be a time where you don't come back together. You know, this is not the person for you, and that's fine. And you have to be willing to allow that time and space to happen. So I think that's important too, that you just keep all of that in mind.
What are your thoughts on what people have been telling Christians as far as how to date?
I would say there's a lot of good advice and there's a lot of bad advice. I'll start with the bad. There's a lot out there that are telling people that it's unbiblical to be single. There are a lot of people out there sharing information stating that, you know, how important looks are and, you know, how someone has maybe lived their life. I feel as believers, as far as how someone's lived their life, if they have, you know, if they were living a certain way and they have turned away from it and they're surrendered to God, it shouldn't be an issue. Also too, as far as the singleness, I do think that, you know, it's a choice. I don't think it's unbiblical to be single at all. And if that's something that, you know, is really on your heart or something that you really want to do, I think someone should be, if that's what they choose. I think people should find contentment with wherever they are in life. You know, if you do desire to be married and you are single, to be content with that until maybe that season is up, or you may end up being single the rest of your life, but just to find contentment in that.
mean, yeah, I think that's a good statement. Which of us is it? Paul who was single?
Yes.
I'll talk about this.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't think that it's unbiblical at all. I think we all have different roads to travel, and so sometimes, you know, God may want you to be single because if you get into a relationship, it may affect what He has planned for you and your life, and the ministry that He's called you to bring souls closer to Him. So, I mean, I don't think that that's appropriate to say that being single is unbiblical. I think, you know, I think that's where you have to get into the word yourself, you know.
Everybody ain't meant to be with somebody. That's not accurate. Not everybody is meant to be with somebody. Sometimes there's people who are destined for that single life, and that is okay. Like that, you know, especially there's people who don't want to be married. You know, like you can't force that on them. Oh, what are you talking about? No, God says you must. No, God doesn't say you must be married. All right, God has a heart for marriage. He allows it. He created. He blessed Adam with Eve to have a union. He did do that. But the only marriage He's really concerned about is the marriage with Him. Like that's what He cares about. And if the marriage here on this earth is going to bring you closer to God, then it's great. But if the marriage here on this earth is going to bring you further from God, then that's bad. The thing that we need to be worried about is the relationship and marriage with God Himself, because that's the main and only thing He really is concerned about. Whether you're married to another human or not, He wants you to be married to Him, in my opinion. And I also read a verse. This is my verse for this week, actually. It's Proverbs 27:20. It says, "Death and destruction are never satisfied. Neither are human eyes." That means we're always looking for like the next thing.
Best thing.
The next best thing. Our eyes are always wandering. We're never really satisfied. And as Amber kind of touched on, we have to be satisfied and content in our singleness if that is where you were supposed to be. We can't be looking at our friends on Facebook and the posts and images and all this crap. Forget all that. Let them live their life. But be satisfied in what God has given you and be content with that. Now, that doesn't mean you can't still go after stuff that you want, which if you want a relationship, that doesn't mean you can't go after that. But it does mean you have to be appreciative and content with what God has in front of you right now. And I would say whatever jerk said that you have to be married. Yeah, I said jerk. I don't care if he's a Christian or not. You're a jerk if you said that. But that's a veggie. That's not a bad word. Sorry, veggie. My bad. You can edit that out. No, you don't. Don't edit that out. But anyway, if whoever said that, I would definitely say that's not accurate. It's not. At least it's not biblically accurate. It is an opinion, and that's fine to have an opinion.
I mean, I can see how somebody might think that or say that. You know, when like God said it's not right for man to be alone, and then He made Eve. Mm-hmm. But again, that was like before any sin came into the world as well. You know, like God is not just this like you know, like He understands like change and stuff that happens. And so I don't think that nowadays that it's you can hold that statement and be like, okay, it's not biblical.
So it's a simple solution. Where's it at? There's nothing in the Bible that says God says you must be married. There's nothing in the Bible. I think that is the verse that they would hold to. But that's not what it says.
But again, even in that, it was just Adam, you know, like it was only him. He was alone. And so he made him a companion. So
that's not what it says.
I understand that, Ant. Like,
I'm talking to that dude that I'm looking at him. He's right there. That's not what it says. All right, my bad. Let's move on. Sorry about that. Sorry. You got me messed up.
No, I like what you're saying, because I've gotten I think everybody that's watching that's a Christian single, I'm not just saying me, but we've all gotten the "Why aren't you married yet?" you know, kind of a thing. And at 30, I've gotten it. I started getting it from I've gotten it probably the past 9 years. Like 8, 9 years. Like, why aren't you married? Why aren't you married? Why aren't you married? And it gets really annoying when it's said in a way, and it's almost like your righteousness is dependent on your relationship status. Like, why aren't you married yet? Like, why aren't you married yet? And then they hold scripture over your head. See, Christians are really good at holding scriptures over people's head to get them to do something that's a desired outcome. So, and I call them sister saved or brother blessed. They have all the great input and advice. And the problem is they don't have to live with the consequences of their advice the way you do. So I noticed the same people who, it's interesting, the same people who want you to get married and wondering why you're not married yet, they always try to like hook you up with somebody, and that person is never a good fit for you, and it's pretty obvious. And so that's why I never listen to suggestions that come from churchy folk, and the rest of the people on the panel know what I'm talking about, because there's this, people don't listen to, like, if they say, well, what is your interest? What are you looking for in a spouse? And I say what I'm looking for, and it's not a really elaborate list. They're like, well, you can't have that. And I'm like, well, what makes you think I can't have that? So it's almost like and I'm speaking to the church community, the Christian community, we have to stop thinking that, and I think you mentioned it earlier, Adana, that your spouse might not be at your church. You might not meet your spouse at church, because there's this idea that, that you're going to meet your spouse at church. So you go to your church, and then they're like, okay, what about this person over there? It's like, well, number one, most people at church don't, particularly if you're at a mega church, if you go to a church and you're trying to meet a spouse, good luck, because chances are they're not even going to talk to you. They're in, they're out. They're not even going to talk to you. That's just the way modern church is. And second, you're limiting yourself to just that full of people. But I guess this is a soapbox for me, so sorry, I have a soapbox moment. I don't like it when people like try and push you to do something that it might not be your time to do yet, or it might not be for you at all. So Anthony, thank you for saying that for me, because you said something that I've been saying for the past few years. Like, just don't put a marriage on me because it's just what we do. Like, do I want to get married? Yes. Is it okay if I'm not married? Yes. Is it okay if I'm married? Yes. I guess it's like the answer is, it's in God's hands how he orchestrates your life, and it's okay if that includes marriage. It's okay if it doesn't include marriage. And so I see a lot of people that they get bent out of shape, and I've had people been out of shape for me. Like, how come you're not married yet? It's like, look, I'm okay. It's okay to not be married, and it's okay to be married. That's a long rant. That's my personal rant. But I guess just thanks for reinforcing that, because I've had all the jerks. Anthony.
I want to say this too real quick. Matthew's talking about, you're hearing these churchy people, or churchy or not, whoever it is, your coworker, whoever, your friend, they're talking about, maybe you should be married, you need to have kids, you need blah, blah, blah. As if they Thanos, like they know they have the time control. Like, how do you know when it's time for me? What is the right time? What is the right time? 33, 34, 24? Like, what is the right time? No, you can't tell me it's my time. I need to be married now. God knows our timing. We have no relevance to when it comes to timing in our life. God controls all that. You can't force love. You can't force a relationship. If you do, you go to jail. You can't force a relationship. You can't force love. All you can do is just let it happen. And there's no time limit on that. It may not happen until, people might fall in love when they're 64 in the nursing home, and they fall in love with their neighbor.
They 64 in the nursing home?
How old they be?
They can't be. Like, our parents are.
Okay, all right. Dang. Maybe not 64. My bad. Maybe not 60.
Goodness.
How about that? 86?
Yeah, let's go a little bit.
Maybe 86. They fallen in love. You get my point. God holds the time. So I just want to encourage, singles out there, like, don't be caught up in other people's timing in your life, because they don't know. They have no idea when it's right for you, what time is right for you. Not your parents, not your friends, nobody. God knows. So rely on God's timing.